Well, welcome to Black History Conversations. We've got a really interesting session today because we're welcoming Nigerian author Dr. Bunmi Oyinsan. She's joining us from Canada, where she's living at the moment, and she's going to update us about the outstanding work she's doing, telling the stories of African history on her Sankova Pan-African platform. And also, I noticed, Bunmi, you're now on Apple Podcasts, and you've got your new children's initiative. So we're looking forward to hearing about that. And Dr. Oyinsan will also tell us a little bit about Canadian Black history. So I found an image that relates to Canadian Black history as well in that. Okay, well, I'm here in Australia, and every session I recognise and acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of Korhanwabel, which is Mount Dandenong, the land on which I live. So it was and always will be Aboriginal land. And I have to say that we have a fantastic channel called NITV that shows so much information. And the campaigns that are going on here in truth telling are just getting started. So there's interesting stuff to tell you about again. Okay, and we also very much stand with the people of Ukraine. These are just so very, very difficult times. Okay, but we won't look at that one yet. We'll carry on. And hand over, hello, and hand over to Bunmi, and you're going to tell us about just what you've been doing in the pandemic times. And before as well. So we really should welcome you more formally, Bunmi, because as an author, I think is that your first career? I think you're going to have to tell us. But anyway, I started, on Amazon, you can read the read segments of the book. Well, I started reading one of your books last night, and I'm just going to have to order it now because it was fascinating to hear about your early days schooling. So, Bunmi, over to you then.
Yeah. Thanks, Liz. Actually, Three Women. It's not my biography. It's not me.
Oh, well, that's a relief. That's a relief.
I do borrow quite a bit from my grandmother's story, but that's as close to me as it gets. The grandmother's character, I used a lot of bits and pieces from my grandmother, because she was one of those few early missionary educated women. She spoke a peculiar kind of English, which she was always proud of, even though it was a mixture of Yoruba and English words and all of that. So I use that part. Otherwise, it's completely fiction.
Oh, fabulous. Well, that's it. That's interesting. I won't worry so much about you now. Okay, then. We'll go to you to hear about what you were going to be talking about.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to start by talking about the website that I launched a few weeks ago. It's called Sankofa Children's storybook website. I'm going to be sharing from the website with you. But just a quick background as to why I'm doing it. First of all, as a writer, I've always believed that stories help form identity, and as a lover of history, I find history helps us to make sense of the world. For me, there were so many things I found puzzling growing up, until I realized that history is not something that was written without political, without some politics involved. And so if I wanted to make sense of history, I had to start digging myself, piece together, what I knew from growing up, and then question everything until I get to what I think is more of a familiar truth. I believe that people who tell stories hold the power to shape the world, and examples are abound. All the main religions are based on fantastic stories. Be Christianity, Islam, Judaism, Buddhism, all of them are based on, they have their kernels on a fantastic story, which has continued to grip the world. And I also believe it's important for Africans and people of African descent to be more participatory in shaping the stories that our children are told about us, who they are, and that these should be made accessible. Of course, with the internet, mobile phones, and all that, it's a bit of we're seeing some kind of democratization of stories, and so my intention when I started that, my intention was how to use these easily accessible technologies to make those stories available for our children and for parents who are looking for resources for their kids. And my approach has been to work predominantly with well, that is the ultimate goal. Ultimately, the idea is to work with young African writers and African in the diaspora, illustrators, animators, and other creatives. And it's not just because it will be creating jobs for a lot of them, which I found is really a needed a service. I'm working with some young people in remote parts of Nigeria, Kenya, who are doing wonderful things, doing animations with their phones. They don't even have laptops. So but I believe it's important to work with them in order to find culturally relevant and original stories while nurturing their talents. And so far, I've seen that it's helped to produce top quality, relevant stories. And as a grandmother, when we were talking just now, we're talking about this silo effect in academia. And my 8-year-old grandson, he comes to me after school for lessons, and one of the lessons we do, apart from his numeracy and all of that, is African history. And I think he's at an age now where he's able to kind of make links between what we learn during lessons with what he does in school. And so during African History Month here, which was last month, he came home a few days afterwards and he says, "Nana, isn't African history supposed to be every day?" I'm like, "Yes, for us, African history is every day." He says, "But African History Month should be African history every day. How come the first day we were only taught about Rosa Parks and Viola Desmond? And since then, it's been the Olympics." And then yesterday again, when we're doing the lesson about Africa being the cradle of civilization, he goes, "You know what, Nana? African history is world history." So I think it's very important, to get them conscientized from such, and his reasons were just things that just made my heart, really swell, because it's stupid to even think that it's one race. We're one race, so Black, yellow, it's stupid. And I'm like, thank you. That is something that a lot of grown-ups have not even figured out. I'm so happy, that you've been able to figure it out. So, the website has been designed to have stories, rhymes, history, biographies. One of the challenges that we quickly came across when we started our elementary school, because we started the secondary school first before the elementary school, was the realization that there was no curriculum available to teach early childhood education. So that by the time kids came to us at age 4, 5, when we first started taking them in, a lot of them had never been because their parents are not educated, so they've never been properly prepared for school. So even getting familiar with even the numeracy and things like that, and even things as basic as using the bathroom. On the first day of school, we had to be running around saying, no, you can't do your business there, because most of them lived in homes where they had no toilets and things like that. So eventually these kids, they catch up with those of their colleagues who had been well prepared for school, but it's a lot of work. And so we decided to come up with a curriculum that, small daycare centers, which is what a lot of poor people in Nigeria, I mean, if they at all think it's important, resort to sending their kids. So there are mummies and that some traders, junior level working mothers leave their kids with. But these women don't do anything with the kids to prepare them for school. They just keep them occupied playing. In fact, some have even been known to resort to giving them cough syrup so that the kids will sleep most of the day and not interfere with their business. And so we came up with this curriculum starting from age 6 months, that people can actually use to start working with kids early, preparing them for school. We also came up with a handbook on how to set up your own daycare. So all of these things and other resources are available on the website. The idea is to make the website a go-to place has been designed to be a go-to place for parents, teachers, libraries, and schools to find culturally relevant resources. An app will be developed in the near future, and both will be accessible from anywhere in the world, because we find out that very few parents, of course, have tablets, but most people have smartphones. So we'll continue to work with writers in Africa and all of that. And then the idea is to have materials for kids from a very early age, up they are like about 10 and the young adults. So I'm just going to stop this now and then demonstrate the website to see, just so you see how far we've gone, what we launched with. So can you still see me?
Yes.
Hello?
I can still see you, but I can't see your website.
Oh, you can't see the website? Okay,
No.
I'm sharing it. I'm supposed to, hold on. I shouldn't have any problem sharing. Okay. Share screen. Yeah, this one. Okay.
Lovely. I can see it now. That's great.
Okay. All right. I'm just
lovely. Yeah.
So this is what we have so far. Okay, so we have some books that we're giving out for free, e-copies. So that's the first thing you see when you get there. And then it's gonna. So
yes, that's fine. I can see history now.
Okay, so and then these are not what we've done with the nursery rhymes. Maybe I should let me try and play one. What we've done with the nursery rhymes has been to find things that are. Oh, sorry, it wants me to sign in. Let me sign in. I should have done that before. I wanted to play.
Nana daycare.
I hope it's there. No. Admin login. This is what I want. Okay.
Oh, great. That looks good.
Yeah. And this is actually, I'm going in from the back end because I don't have a regular
front end sign in. Okay.
Yeah. So, okay, I wanted to play one of the nursery rhymes, just so you see what we try to do with them. Now, this is a very popular nursery rhymes. Nursery rhyme, I'm sure most of you will recognize it, but we've changed some of the words and even the rhythm.
I like to eat apples and bananas. I like to eat apples and bananas. I like to eat mangoes and pineapples. I like to eat mangoes and pineapples. I like to eat apples and oranges. I like to eat apples and oranges. I like to eat.
Okay, so what we've done is to with the drums and other instruments that are very popular with African beats. We've also changed some of the fruits to the kind of fruits that children in the tropics are more familiar with: pawpaws, pineapples, mangoes, instead of just apples and bananas, that the original song. So we're also working on traditional African lullabies and rhymes, some of the ones that a lot of Africans grew up with in traditional African languages. Those are going to be the next set that we're releasing. And then we try and release, yeah, so one of the things we're planning to do, it's a subscription-based website. And the idea is for it to, when we start generating enough money from users in the economically more vibrant countries, we'll be able to give to the access to children in Africa and the Caribbean for free. So that's the ultimate plan with it. And these are some of the topics of blogs that parents can also find. What is normal speech or language development? What is your parenting style? Can your parenting style cause your children more? So just things like this are also some of the resources that are available. The handbook and the okay, these are the correct. These are the, so we have the free handbook for people who want to set up their own daycare center. We also have a full range of the curriculum.
It's really comprehensive, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's fantastic.
So that's it for the website. In terms of, you also wanted me to talk about the things I've been working on the Sankofa Pan-African series.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. During the Black History Month, what we tried to do was to release one biography every day of one African or a person of Africa descent in the diaspora who has done, something to, who have done any activism or work, in the past or even present, to kind of challenge racism or to even break glass ceilings. So we had people like Diana Abbott, the British parliamentarian. We had Padmo. So we had quite a nice mix from all over the world.
This was in Sorry to interrupt you. This was in February, which is your Black History Month.
Yes.
Yes, that's right. Okay, so last month you were doing all these things.
So we had people like Mabel Shegun, Margaret Ekpo. We had a lot of them. Patrice Lumumba, Steve Biko. So we had we released one every day of the Black History Month.
Gosh, that's fantastic. Are you able to show us that site, Bunmi?
Yes, I can. I don't see why not. Yeah, let me go to playlists. My system is a bit slow. I don't know why. Probably because I'm in the, okay.
Oh yes, here we are. Oops.
It's just slow coming up. Content, yeah, it's coming up.
I'm absolutely fascinated by this channel, and I go along on it quite often to have a look what you're doing, and the sessions that are that you've recorded. Just so interested, and you've got a huge
It's just so slow this morning. I don't know. Maybe because I'm in the basement.
Yeah.
It's not
it's fascinating. We've got Why is the Ark of the Covenant in Ethiopia?
Okay, let me.
Mysterious Land of Punt. So you do quite a lot on sort of ancient Black history, and then European history, and you also do challenging sessions. I love the one on that you've been doing recently about looking at. Oh, that's interesting. I've not seen that one yet. About legend.
Looking at this is the one we did on the very short ones. This is the one we did on Diane Abbott.
Yeah, just 5-minute clips. That's great, isn't it?
Yeah. And I find that for young people, 5 minutes is just long enough to hold them.
Yeah.
Let me
expose them to our history early in life. Brent's illustrated biography of African legends series.
Okay, sorry.
Before we proceed, have you downloaded your free copy of our children's illustrated biography of African legends yet? Please do so if you haven't. Don't forget, we owe our children a responsibility to expose them to our history early in life. Also, please help us to continue bringing.
I don't know why it stopped. I think my
coffee. Please also subscribe, share, and like our video. Our legend today is Diane Abbott, British parliamentarian and politician. Diane Julie Abbott was born on the 27th of September 1953 in Paddington, London, in the UK, to Jamaican parents. Abbott is the first Black woman to be elected to the British Parliament and the longest serving Black member of Parliament in the House of Commons. She has been the British Member of Parliament for Hackney North and Stoke Newington since 1987. She's a socialist member of the Labour Party who served in Jeremy Corbyn's shadow cabinet as Shadow Home Secretary from 2016 to 2020. Diane Abbott studied at Harrow County Grammar School before going on to read history at Newham College, Cambridge. After joining the civil service, she worked as a reporter for Thames Television and TVAN before becoming a press officer for the Greater London Council. She joined the Labour Party and was elected as a councillor on Westminster City Council in 1982, and then as an MP in 1987. She has been returned in every general election since 1987. She was the She was a member of the Labour Party Black sections, alongside other long-standing notable politicians of color, like Paul Boateng, Benny Grant, and Keith Vance. She did not support Tony Blair's New Labour project, which pushed the Labour Party to the center during the 1990s. And she often voted against his policies in the House of Commons. She opposed the launching of the Iraq War and the proposed introduction of ID cards. She contested for the Labour Party leadership as a left-winger in 2010, but lost to Ed Miliband, who then appointed her shadow secretary for public health in the official opposition front bench. She supported Jeremy Corbyn's bid to become Labour leader in 2015 and became Shadow Secretary of State for International Development, then Shadow Health Secretary, and eventually Shadow Home Secretary. She supported Corbyn's leftward push of the Labour Party. She was not a supporter of Brexit, and because she believed that Britain was stronger in the EU, and she actively campaigned to retain the UK membership of the European Union. After the 2019 election, Abbott left the shadow cabinet. She remains in the House of Commons as a backbencher. Thanks for watching.
Okay, so that's one of the ones we saw. So we did a few more like that for Black History Month.
That's fantastic, Bunmi. Bunmi, I was just wondering if I could share my screen, because my computer's operating a bit quicker than your film, so we could just have a look at some of the African history stories that you put. I mean, I know Diane Abbott's an African history story. Would that be possible?
Okay, let me go back to.
All right. If you stop sharing the screen.
Okay, let me stop sharing.
Yeah.
Done.
And just let me share. Okay, so this is how I look at it, so you can see how I see it, and you highlight different ones that are just you've just done. This cause of ancient decline in ancient Egypt, and also I just wanted to scroll down. So there are popular uploads, or ancient Egyptians, white or black. You don't always talk about Egyptians, I have to say. Why did Europe twist African history? It's these sorts of ones I find particularly interesting. And Africans then discovered America centuries before Columbus. And it just goes, I just want people to know there are just so many recordings, so many absolutely fabulous recordings. And you go into detail about African history, so the Jollof Empire and the Wolof Confederacy, just amazing. You can lose yourself in a whole day in the recordings that you've done, because you've recorded so much over the last couple of years. I mean, I'm just in awe of and then you got different series, your African authors, change makers. It's just fabulous news stories. I'm so in awe of you, Bunmi. Anyway, I won't talk anymore. You tell me if you want me to look at any of these in particular.
Thank you.
Are there any that you want to look at in particular? I mean, even one here you did on how to talk to children about racism.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just so lovely. They're just brilliant presentations, and your children's book series as well. Just amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, is that all right? Shall I stop sharing now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. What else did you want me to talk about? Um,
Maybe if you can just ask a few questions. Now, what
okay.
about the Apple podcast series? How did that
Okay.
happen?
A radio station in Nigeria actually approached us to extract the audio for radio. So what we've then started doing was to just extract some of the audios. As you can see, I don't have any funding, so it's not as if I'm going out filming, any really in any location. So it's quite easy for people to actually follow my recordings as audio. So we've been sending to the radio station and then uploading them as podcasts on Apple and I think a few other um, podcast avenue. But it's the same thing that I have on YouTube that we're just using the audios for podcasts.
So it's fabulous because the Apple, presumably everybody can get Apple Podcasts. It isn't just if you've got an Apple machine, but the Apple Podcasts are really interesting and it's interesting that they've found you through your contact in Nigeria, and some of the presentations that you've made have now been uploaded onto this, which is going to be accessible to a whole lot more people.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinating. So I'm just really impressed and watching what you're doing, because we're trying to think with Black History Conversations, what's the next best thing for us to do. So Apple Podcasts was one of the things that I wanted to ask you about. And then you were just mentioning Black History Month in Canada. And but first of all, we'll see if anybody's got any questions they want to ask you about the work that you've been doing and the broadcasts, because we've got new folks joining us. So welcome to those who've joined us in the last few minutes. Has anybody got anything you want to ask Bunmi?
It looks amazing, Bunmi. I particularly like the children's stories. I shall show my granddaughter some of those. I'm sure she'd enjoy them.
Thank you. Thank you.
Who did you get? I missed the bit where you were saying who actually did the animations. Did you have different people doing those?
Yeah, some of the illustrations are done by just young people. A lot of them were actually done by a young lady called Claire Ashinze. I think she's based somewhere in Enugu in Nigeria. And in fact, the two people that I'm currently working with in Nigeria were self-taught.
Wow.
And on their phones. So they work on their phones and, they do the illustrations. One person does the illustration, another person does we do some minimal animation, just to move the drawings a bit. And then I have another young one who is actually an undergraduate. She's studying surveying, who does the music. She just happens to have a beautiful voice and loves to sing, and from the little she's getting from me, she's supplementing her university education. I had another young lady too who was working for me from Kenya. She was actually doing, the postings and things like that. And now she's written a children's book herself.
Oh, that's fantastic. It's really good. I'm interested because obviously you use the medium of English, Bunmi, which can get to a whole lot of people. And I know that's is it your second language, or do you speak many other languages?
Actually, I speak Yoruba and Pidgin English, which I think is my strongest, because I grew up in an area where Pidgin English is the lingua franca, Port Harcourt. So I pride myself on being a purist when it comes to Pidgin English. So but we're actually, we've sent out a call for translators or people who write stories in Yoruba, Igbo, Swahili, Hausa, the major African languages, because we think it's also something that people, especially who are out here, might be looking for their kids. And like I said, we just finished recording a set of 10 lullabies and rhymes in African languages, in Yoruba, in the Ghanaian language, in Twi, in languages from the Congo, So we just finished recording them, and then we're having them animated to be released as, as a batch within the next couple of weeks. And that one actually came from a demand during my launching, because some of the people who came to the launch were like, we would love to be able to find things like Kulumbu Yeye that we were raised on. And I was like, I'm still on it. We're already on it, because I had started gathering them. With my grandkids, I actually try and teach them, songs in Yoruba, Soji Oyinsan, and so I knew that other people would be looking for them. So we started work on them, and we should be releasing them soon.
Well, I think it's especially important to recognise the languages. Obviously, there's no end of languages spoken across Africa, but Pidgin English is interesting, that it is now respected and recognised as a language. I think the BBC is now broadcasting in Pidgin English, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really interesting that these very modern languages, like Pidgin English, are now fully acknowledged, and I think that's really important. But also the old traditional African rhymes, really important and wonderful. So a very practical question from me. With the Sankova Pan-African series, which I love looking at and spend a lot of time catching up on those, and it's great that you record them and post them. Is there a way of signing up for reminders if you're doing a new session that comes up on your email or something?
Yeah, there should be. I think you raised this with me before. There should be, but I'm sure there is,
Okay, that's a personal request, because I'd love to get reminders, and then I'd just click on it, whereas I forget.
I'll find out how it's done, and then yeah.
That's amazing. So the other thing I was just going to ask you about very briefly was about how you found it as a Nigerian living in Canada, how you found out how you've learned about Black history in Canada, and how that's action now in Black History Month and throughout the year. If you just wanted to say a little bit to us about that.
For me, it's a very personal journey, in the sense that my mother's father's side, my paternal grandfather's family, were actually returnees, people known as, they were Sierra Leoneans, who settled in Lagos, Nigeria, and they were Creole. And of course, the Creoles were the people who founded Freetown from Nova Scotia. During the American War of Independence, the British had promised the slaves that if they won, they would be set free. But the British did not win. And so, because a lot of them had actually fought on the side of the British, they had to escape. They had to leave America. And most of them moved over to Canada. They were called the Loyalists. But when they got to Canada, they did not have the kind of reception that they thought, even though the Underground Railroad had also, been there and all of that. What they found was that the British were no better friends or no better allies than the Americans. And what they did was to actually consign a lot of them to some of the hardest areas to survive in Canada, in Nova Scotia, in places where it was almost impossible to farm. But they were lucky because they were befriended by the First Nations, who taught them how to actually farm those lands and helped them survive. So you find out that in Canada, there's a lot of also intermarriages between Africans and the First Nations and all of that. So, but coming from my mother's family, and they were forever proud of the fact that they were Sierra Leoneans. Not once was that connection between how they found themselves in Sierra Leone and Canada ever made. I didn't know that until I actually came to live in Canada, And the first thing that struck me when I came to live in Canada was that I was living in Nova Scotia, and there are some settlements of African Nova Scotians that have been there since the Loyalists. And I made some friends with people from those settlements. And there were times when I was like, it was in the twilight zone, because I ran into family names replicated amongst my mother's relatives in Lagos. I found people who could have been my first cousins. In fact, I got on a bus one day, and the driver, if I had my mother's older brother had not died a few months before I left Nigeria, I would have just rushed and hugged him. He looks that much like my uncle. I stepped on the bus, took one look at his face, and I was sure I was seeing a ghost. I was shaking. And then I had to. So luckily, a couple of weeks later, I ran into him in church. And my friend who had invited me to church introduced him. I said, and once he saw me, he recognized, said, "You're the one who was on my bus the other day with your tongue hanging out." I said, "Yes." I said, "Because I thought I'd seen a ghost." "You're a dead ringer for my uncle, but he's dead." And he was like, "Really?" And I was just, I had to touch him. And then I took a photograph to go and show him, and he was like, "Oh, wow, we could have been twins." and then it got me interested in knowing how come, and then that was when I now knew that it was from these communities that Freetown had been found, and it's unfortunate because my husband and I then started working on a documentary. We're going to look at the fact that Lagos and Dahomey, Wida, were some of the most busiest ports of transporting slaves from West Africa to the Americas. And so the fact that, okay, I'm a Lagosian, my mother is Lagosian, but we came from this melting pot. And then some of the people taken from there ended up in North America, and then from North America found their way back to Freetown, from where a lot of the elites, one of the earliest elites in Nigeria, people like Abbott Macaulay, Samuel Ajayi Crowder, all of them were returnees from Sierra Leone. So we actually had shot quite some footage. We're still looking for funding and all of that. And then KLM lost our film in transit, and that project never took off the ground. Yeah, so
something to hold on to, perhaps for the future.
Yeah.
Lovely. Annie's saying that she's a Creole from Sierra Leone, and she's written about that who went to Nova Scotia, and she was blown away when she visited Halifax. So, Annie, do you want to share anything with? And she's just written a novel about Sarah Forbes Bonetta.
Hi, cousin.
Yes, the connection between Nova Scotia and Sierra Leone is very, very strong. Because with Thomas Clarkson, who's John Clarkson, came over to plead with the British to give them better land. I went over there and I looked around where the blacks, loyalists, had been sent, and it was very, very difficult for them to survive. The whole thing is with the Creoles is also that they got the Maroons from Jamaica who had revolted against the British, and they were part of it. The liberated slaves, the recaptives, were part of them, and also the black poor who had gone to England before that, and they took them. But what was interesting about those people was that when they were sent back to Freetown, a lot of them came with English wives or white women who wanted to be part of that society. So the Creoles are made up of these 4 basic tribes who later on sort of got involved with the indigenous people, and that's part of what I write about. So this is very interesting for me. Yeah, my book is called the Breaking the Mafa Chain, and it's fiction, but it is based on Sarah Forbes Burnett being gifted to Queen Victoria, and how she saw the white society that she was brought into after being gifted by King Dezo. And then she was actually sent back to Freetown by Queen Victoria and went to school there. I know the school, and I know quite a lot of her descendants. So this has always been a story that's been fascinating for me. I'm now in the middle of writing the sequel to that, of when she came back and how she got married to John Davis and all of that.
Yeah, and I
yeah, but I mean the relationship between Sarah Burnett and the Rock went on through several generations, of course. So,
and then some of her descendants are still
yes, and some of her descendants are in Sierra Leone, and some in and a lot of them are in England, of course.
Yes.
I find it really, really fascinating, this whole, and a lot of the things I get and that I hear about, of course, is from Sean. So thank you, Sean. I follow you and find out about what's going on. You know, I've been to one of your talks when you were talking about William and Ellen Craft a few years ago. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Thank you very much, Annie. Can I just ask you where it is you're speaking from? Where are you at the moment?
I'm in Cambridgeshire. All
right. Okay. Annie, perhaps you might be willing to tell us about your work and your writing. That would be absolutely fascinating one week. The sound is very fractured, which is a bit difficult at the moment for me, but no, because I'm in Australia. Who knows?
I used to be in Australia.
That's a bit fuzzy. Okay, thank you, Annie. So back to you, Bunmi. Thank you so much. Has anybody else got any questions or anything that they want to? Bunmi, did you want to tell us any more about Canadian history?
Yeah, well, what I've been, like I said, I've been taking, giving talks, you know, when invited on Canadian history, and I'm usually very amused that most Canadians are only aware of the Underground Railroad, the fact that Canada was a place of refuge, you know, for escaped slaves, and the very part that Canadians actually own slaves, and that Canadian industry, at least the economy of Canada, benefited heavily from slave owning in the West Indies. And the fact that a lot of universities here were actually built from slave wealth. And even segregation, which only ended recently, is something that is usually left out of what kids are taught about the role of Canada in history. And for me, one of the most damning was when I found out that South Africa actually came. When they wanted to start the apartheid system of separation, of separating people, it was built on the Canadian reform school system, and the Canadian system of segregating First Nations, people of different races in particular locations. That was what South Africa built the apartheid system on, you know, and it's something that has been conveniently left out of Canadian history. So it's
that's really, really interesting, and I think understanding the breadth of Black history in a particular area, whether it's a country or a county, I think that's interesting. We've also had the point earlier from Sean that we don't need to put history into silos, but it is easy to exclude stories of Black history in different ways. Well, thank you so much. That was absolutely wonderful. And thank you very much for getting up at the crack of dawn. What time is it at the moment, Bunmi?
It's 9:06 right now.
Right, well, that's not too
After
bad.
9.
You can have a cup of coffee now. Well, thank you very much indeed. So we've heard about the Sankova children's story books and that new website that you've got, which has just got such a wealth of information on and helpful information that will really help individuals and communities to help with bringing up children, but also helping with supporting other people's children. And I just love the out of the mouths of babes, your grandson's comment that African history is world history. Well, yes, it is big time, isn't it? So it's really lovely, and to hear about what you did for your Black History Month last month, and to share with us that story of that you included Diane Abbott. That's really respectful. I'm really touched by that. That's really good. So anybody who wants to look up any of these things, just look up Sankova children's, and that'll get you into it.
I have a quick question for Annie. Please, how can I get your novel on Sarah Forbes Bonetta?
It's on Amazon, but it's just been published in America, and you can get it at Barnes Noble. It's been published by Pegasus.
Okay, I'll look
or by Jacaranda in England.
Okay, I'll look out for it.
Okay.
Well, we're looking forward to that as well. Thank you very much for joining in, Annie. I think at that point, before we go on to talk about what I found out about what's been going on in the last week or so, I think we'll wind up the recording now. I'd just like to thank you again very much indeed, Dr. Bunmi Oyinsan. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.